Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Yes, I am talking through my intro. Sorry. I just wanted to explain what we're doing because the video does get right into it. So Kendra is back. We're going to rebalance her nails and completely change her design. So I wanted to mention that before we get started. So welcome again, you guys. Right here, I'm going to show you the little plastic container I keep returning clients' files in. And today it's time to replace the Tammy Taylor peel and stick, and I found these new Pana 80 grit files that are really small for her file nails, small nails. And then I'm going to empty my sterilization pouch items into the tub so they can stay clean while we're working. Here I'm showing you she has no lifting. Sorry about the zoom in really hard. I did that when I was recording and I wasn't able to fix it on edit. So right here I'm going to go in with this 5-course safety bit from Not Polished that I showed you up close just a minute ago. Now this bit I'm going to be keeping at 11,000 RPMs. Her nail beds are really small. Her nail enhancements are pretty small. So I'm only floating this bit. I have this slowed down and I do stop it in a couple places. I just want to show you how much this bit takes off and how I'm using it. I'm lifting it after every stroke so that she does not get heat, even though it's at a high rate of speed. And when I'm working on the natural nail, especially when the product gets thin like this, I'm only going to work in very small sections and I don't keep my bit in the same spot for any amount of time whatsoever. So I move around the nail as I go. And you're going to see right here, I literally take off part of her nail. Boom. So I froze that so you can see what I'm talking about. So right here I'm going to go in and I'm just going to clip it off because at this point that nail needs to be replaced. But I am going to continue to thin out as much as I can the rest of the acrylic that's on her natural nail, because when I want to glue a tip on there, I want that as thin as possible. And the object of this is to save the nails and get the enhancement, whether it's gel, a polygel, acrylic, but in this case acrylic, as filed off as possible so that when you put on your new acrylic, you aren't, putting on top of a huge bulky nail. So I'm showing you that even though my speed is really high, that I'm not using much pressure. I'm just floating my bit over the nails. That's how I don't generate heat with such a coarse bit on a really high speed. Because with it being a high speed, my bit won't drag and skip on the nail. Since it's up high, it does let me float it, which actually will enable you to create less heat. I do not touch the growth or natural nail with that bit. Okay, and I stopped the video here, closest to my thumb, that right where I'm showing you that little clear white looking moon shape that I'm gonna work on right here. Do you see? I need to get that off. Okay, so that is lifting. It's not necessarily, her nail wasn't lifted there. You couldn't get hair or anything under there, but when you take off the acrylic and you see an area like that, that means you're going to get lifting. That part will flake off soon. It should look like this when you're done. That should be gone. So the goal of this step with the sanding band, I've mentioned before, I only like using sanding bands on acrylic. But if I'm using it to remove acrylic and see how, let me see if I can get this right. I'm going to use this bit on a speed of 4,000 or 5,000 RPM. The only time I am going to touch her natural nail is right there around the cuticle when I'm taking the shine off of the growth that she has and pushing the cuticle up just a little bit. I did push up the cuticle with the cuticle pusher and don't have that footage. I don't know why. But when you find little sections like that, and I'm going to give a few examples. This thumb had it right here in that area. You're going to use your sanding band kind of at an angle to pick at and chip away that product that looks white. When you're finished, it should look like this. The acrylic should look seamless. You shouldn't be able to tell where it's come from. There might be a little parts that you can see, but there shouldn't be any of that white chipping look. That you need to get off, because if you put an enhancement, acrylic, whatever, on top of that, you're going to seal in any moisture that you have there, which will create a greenie, or if you're lucky enough not to get a greenie from it, you will have a weak spot there because your acrylic is being put on top of product that is not adhered to the nail. So as we go here, you'll start seeing, no, she didn't have lifting, but as I'm working with the coarse bit that removed the product, and as I'm working with the sanding band, it will expose areas of weakness that basically your bit is creating lifting from, but it was going to lift there anyway if she had kept the nails on like a week longer. If that's all making sense. If it doesn't make sense, please leave me a comment and ask what I'm not clear on, because I'm trying to go fast again. So as I'm working here, you see that my sanding band should be smoothing out the entire area and getting off what I didn't get off with my coarse bit, because my coarse bit, like I mentioned, was on a high speed and we were debulking the nail. Okay, we were getting most of the product off of the nail. So this step is to do more fine tuning. You're going to thin this out even more, but mostly make it smooth, and you're checking the nail health of your client. So right there, I just went over her natural nail, and now I'm going to, and again, that's the natural nail, so very smoothly in one little area. Then when I get onto the acrylic, only can I start doing that little picking and pecking and maybe a little faster motion like I am here to make sure I get rid of any of those little white spots. I hope this was clear. I hope I zoomed in enough and not too much, and that you guys can see right there. Do you see how I'm chipping that away on the side there? And when I'm finished, it looks flush with the nail. That's what I want you to look for. I want you to look for the white spots, and then like there, see how I'm taking that off? But I'm not touching her natural nail. I'm only doing that on the acrylic. So you never want to do that type of digging or flicking or chipping at the natural nail. Make sure you're only working at and touching the acrylic. Also, the angle of your bit should be very flat and flush against the nail when you are working on the natural nail. When you're on acrylic, that's when you can change the angle. See how I'm working that off there? And I can see as I'm done here, even though it's a little bit white, it's not lifted. You're going to clean the nail with swipe or alcohol to dehydrate and to remove all of the dust and oils that you see. That white speck on her ring finger, that is, I believe it's called hyperpigmentation. It's like a calcium buildup or something in her nail. That's not a white spot I left on there. That's just a spot on her nail. I think you've probably seen them before. We all get them. Oh, that's a lot of talking, trying to get all of that in. I wanted to make sure you guys got the point, but here I am going in with my bonder, which I'm going to use the acrylic primer from Kiara Sky. And here I'm going in with my not polished black acrylic. She wanted to keep the length and shape. Also, when I was finished with the sanding band, you did see I went through and pre-shaped the nails. Basically, if there were any nails that weren't, that maybe lost their shape or sharpness around the edges from wear or from my filing, I just go back in and reshape the edges so that when I apply my acrylic, I am still using that as my guide for my shape as to where I'm putting the acrylic. So here I'm applying the black acrylic. She wanted black on one finger and alternating the bright green that I'm going to use, which is also also from Not Polish and acrylic, called Feeling Lucky. So she wanted every other finger black, green, and then she wanted a couple hearts painted on. So pretty simple, except that we're working with very highly pigmented colors. So when you're working with highly pigmented colors, you need to be careful around the cuticle area so you don't get any staining. So sometimes it's hard to get the acrylic flush to the cuticle without getting it on there. When we're working with nudes or pinks or lighter colors, or even clear, I don't think we notice as sharply as we do that we're, how close we have to work to the cuticle but not get it on there. So as I'm going here, you can see, especially on the edge there, because her last nail that I'm working on top of was glitter, there'll be little pieces showing through that I have to make sure to cover up. So you'll see me going with little bits like I am here to make sure I'm tucking around my edges and covering that up. Also, especially with darker or highly pigmented colors, when you're doing this, you want to make it just you don't want the nail thick, but you want to put enough there that when you go to file, you don't file it off, because if this were a fresh set and the only acrylic that was there is the black, it wouldn't matter how much I filed down unless I was getting to the tip, but I wouldn't expose that old nail that was under there. So when you're doing a rebalance like this, it wouldn't happen with a fill either, because pink would be pink, you'd just be filling on top of the same color. But the struggle I always have with this is making sure that I'm only laying enough black, let's say, as we're working with the black, to keep my shape nice and trim. And when I have to file, the struggle is to not take off the black and expose the glitter that was there for her last set. So I do cap these in clear very lightly so that I will mostly be working on the clear if I'm, when I'm filing. And since she wanted every other nail black and every other nail green, I'm going to do all the black nails at once and then switch my monomer and do the green. And mostly because these are short nails, I could cover most of the nail with one bead and then go in with smaller beads to fill in my areas, or apex or cuticle. So that's what you see me doing here. And I am working again with my young nails brush, just because this is such a small area. I'm still not confident enough with my larger Kara Sky brush to do Kendra's set. So I'm getting outside of my comfort zone using the Kara Sky brush, working on myself and my practice hand. And once I get this uploaded, I will be posting some more videos I have planned, liquid to powder ratio, and something else I forget right now, but I will do. Oh, I'm going to redo how to build a gel nail if you have thin nails, because I did that video so fast because I needed my nails done fast that I didn't do it as well as I would have liked, especially if I'm teaching or showing someone an example. So I'm going to redo that. Also, you'll notice as I work that I have very, very little monomer in my dish because I don't want to waste any. I only have 3 black nails on this hand, so I don't want a full dish and then have to dump out that full dish when I switch to the green. So I was being pretty miserly with it. I don't know why I have lots of monomer, but I don't know. It's just a thing. All right. Also, so as I'm going here, I'm trying to keep her shape, just like I talk about any other time, and keep the nail. Did you guys see how I wiped my brush on that? Keep the nail a nice almond shape, as that's what she had before. That's what she wanted. Now, what ended up happening was the nail tip that I put on that I had to replace that made her other pinky nail new before I did the filing. So I had already done the application of the other hand that I'm not showing you here, so the one that had the replacement pinky. I had already done the application, but not the filing yet. So she had time to look at her hand. And since I had not filed that nail yet, it was more of in a stiletto shape, so it had more of a point to it. So I had done all 10 fingers in the almond shape and, kept it in an almond shape. But when I went to file, she said that was her favorite nail, the other pinky that I had done that was still in more of a stiletto shape. So when I went to file and shape her nails, she wanted them more pointy. So I had to take off the rounded edge of these and add a point to them, which means I had to remove, I cannot talk today, I'm sorry, which means I had to remove some acrylic. And remember, I had just talked about how I needed to keep it thin. So I ended up having to replace a little bit of acrylic toward the end to kind of give these nails a different shape than I had built them to be. So they do come out looking a little more pointy than they are here as I'm applying. Also, if you notice, and I notice this with not polished acrylics, they're really highly pigmented ones, not black because you can't tell, and really not like the reds either, but any that are highly pigmented but lighter in color, so like this green, some of the pinks, when you lay the bead down, like I'm sure you noticed there, it looks like it's going to marble. Like you can see the clear and pigment separation. And it seems like it's not going to go away because as you're pulling the acrylic down, it doesn't look like it's blending out, but it does. If you notice, see that right there, that swirly looking clear that happens when you lay a bead? How you fix that is after you get it laid like I did, I'm going to go in with a few wet beads that I can get some monomer into and kind of slick it down, and that takes care of that. And then you'll notice they come out beautiful. So if you are, like I've mentioned this before, first beginning to use a not polished acrylic and you think, oh my gosh, these aren't supposed to marble, this is marbling, just don't sweat it. It comes out. It all comes out in the wash, however you want to say it. This index finger, I'll remind you, the last set we did, she had a ripped nail on this hand, and her sidewall came way up higher than the other sidewall. So I had to glue the tip up higher than I did the others, which made this nail shorter because the tips were already so small. So if I had a long 4XL tip to work with, I would have room to fix that. But since these tips were really literally just tips on the edge of her nail, I didn't have room to do that. Putting it up higher made it, there's a marbly I'm talking about, and watch how it goes away. I didn't have any room to work with to make it longer, so putting it up higher made it shorter. So she didn't have too much growth in 2 weeks, as you saw, so this hasn't grown out yet enough to be the same length as the others. So if you notice this one being a little shorter than the others, that's why. And you can't really tell when you're looking at the set as a whole, but when you look at the fingers next to each other side by side, to me it was pretty obvious, and that's why I'm explaining it. So I want you guys to let me know what sets you'd like to see next besides Watch Me Works with clients. See, I reluctantly put some more monomer in there because this was my last nail. So annoying. But since it wasn't completely saturated with green, I figured I would use it for my clear, so I squirted a little more in there than I needed. What was I going to say? Oh, and I do use Not Polished Clear. So the colors used here, Not Polished Black, Not Polished Feeling Lucky, Not Polished Clear. I'm using my Young Nails monomer. I'm using Kiara Sky Acrylic Primer. I'm using my Young Nails number 9 brush. The bit I used was the 5-course safety bit from Not Polish. I'm going to be using one of their medium 5-in-1 bits to begin with when I start doing her cuticle area filing after I do my hand filing. I already showed you the hand files I'm going to use. But I don't like that bit. Even at a nice high speed, I mean, it worked amazing. It got right in there with the cuticle, did the job, but it left too many lines in the acrylic for me where I felt like I had to file it again after that. And what is the point if that's what you're doing? It's supposed to be a finish file. So I do, after I file a couple of nails with that bit that you'll see shown here, I do finish the rest of her set with my medium barrel bit. I'm not sure if that footage is in here, the barrel bit footage. But here I am going in with that thin coat of clear, like I mentioned. And this is not for strength purposes. This is for filing purposes. Since my shape is pretty neat, but I still have to do some filing, I am putting on a clear coat. Also, I don't usually show this. Every single time you do a set, you guys, you should be turning the nails upside down. It's just a little extra step you should do for your clients so there's not wads of acrylic under there. Even if it's just a little bit that you take off, it's just the point. It's just the point of providing a service. So here I'm using this little Panda bit for the first time. It's an 80/80 grit. I got them off Amazon, and they were really handy for working in small areas like this. So this was the nail she liked, and she asked that I make it a little more pointy. So we did go a little more stiletto, starting here with this nail. And she looked at it a couple times so I could ask her if that was the shape she was looking for. That's what that was there. So I'm doing my normal filing where I'm starting at the edges and working on the top. I use a hand file to do the whole nail except the cuticle area, and then the cuticle area, and to take out the scratches is when I will use my E-file and a bit. And the brush I'm using to brush off the acrylic as I go is my Not Polish Ombre brush. It's not its purpose. It's not made for being a dust brush, but that's what I use it for because the bristles are much more stiff and I feel like it gets more off than just like a rose dust brush. I do use a rose dust brush, but usually to like clean the dust off my client's hands or the dust off my desk or the area, because it covers a larger surface. So as you can see here, I am taking this to more of a point than rounded, which does expose that glitter that's underneath. So I have to be very careful to, when I'm finished filing, what's showing on my edges is still my black or green and not the glitter design that was underneath. Right there, I was just checking the shape with my thumbs. That's another little trick that you guys can do, because especially with a short nail, it's hard to see the shape with a dark color. So if you just put your thumbs next to the nail like that, you can see the shape better because you're only looking at the nail. I don't know if that makes sense. So this is the bit I'm talking about. This is a fabulous bit. It does work like a baddie. I mean, it gets right in that cuticle. But I just didn't like the marks it left in the nail. I just felt like maybe I'm not using it right. Maybe I wasn't using it correctly. I was using it like my other bits, and it just left too many scratches and gouges in the nail for me. But I did like how it was sharp, how it really got into the cuticle around the edges, and how I was able to do a little bit of free edge tuning up with it as well. And if you notice the little black acrylic actually on her skin there, you want to try to avoid that when you're working with dark colors, but it's not always possible. Sometimes you get a little bit on there. And after the client washes their hands 1 or 2 times, that will go away. Pardon me. I hate seeing that there, though. I get really annoyed with myself when that happens. So you see this bit's really, really nice. And I don't know if you can see it in this video, but it definitely left marks in my nail. And I just didn't like that. That's not going to be covered up with the top coat. You're going to have to file again after that. So I think this bit might be more for if you really haven't done well on your shaping and you need to debulk. I'm not sure. So I put on Gloss-It top coat, and then I'm using some gel. This is one of the only times you guys will see me draw anything. Okay, I'm not good at it. Drawing little hearts on with some gel, curing it in a lamp, re-top coating it when it comes out, putting some cuticle oil on, and then this set is finished. Of course, I attached my little TikTok at the end so you guys can see the finished product. And that was all she wanted for this set. It was super cute. It was super easy. And I want to remind you guys, if you are doing the steps I was coaching in the beginning with the coarse bit and removing product, having the e-file up at a speed of 11 and going fast, please make sure you're experienced with an e-file before you do any of that, because even though I was trying to let you know that it was easy and how to do it and all of that, you really can hurt someone with a coarse bit like that and your e-file being up high. So even though it does look easy, please practice on yourself or in school or, before you take it to a client like that. Just a little, I guess, caveat or reminder. I don't know. So here's the top coat. I'm not top coating all the nails, only the ones that the hearts are drawn on. Then I put on the cuticle oil, which is Young Nails Rose, and we're done. You guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you next time.